Hello everybody, Crazy Derp Girl / Kawaii Kitty is here, always having an identity crisis. Today, I'm finally talking about HUGtto Precure. So HUGtto Precure is a season I love so much. Like, low-key, I love HUGtto. It's not my favorite season, but it's near the top. Like, HUGtto is like a really great season with a lot of things really greatly executed and well done. A lot of the characters are really deep and interesting to watch. And it's just like a really fun season. It has really great comedy, great art, and great animation, which Mahotsukai not so much, but mainly Kira Precure have been missing a lot of like nice looking fight animation. Mahotsukai had a few, but HUGtto really amps it up a bit. We have great backstories and great character drives most of the time, and this season is just a lot of fun. Now on to our first main character, lead / Precure. So our first character is Nonohana, or Kyriel. So Hana is basically a regular Precure, if I'm being completely honest. A lot of people love her, but I don't really have that crazy like love for her, because a lot of her is just regular pink. But the best part about her is that she basically cheers people on. Her whole catchphrase is hooray hooray, you can do it, or something around those way, like something around that. And yeah, she really, like, that's her goal, is to keep people cheering, because a lot of times there's people like better than her at doing things and she's not so great at a lot of things. So like she basically cheers people on to keep going, which is why she's like pretty much a pretty good leader when it comes to it, and like it's a really good connector when it comes to like bringing characters together. She did also have this backstory where she was getting bullied, but like it wasn't executed that great. She kind of just like whenever she saw her bully again, she was like, oh, yeah, they showed flashbacks of it, but like it could have been better. Now her plot with the main villain was really interesting. So a lot of what I'm gonna have to say is gonna end up being added onto the villain section, because George Kurai is a villain. Basically, like, he's from like the future right now. At this point, he's trying to stop Hana from like basically dying, and like he's really interesting when it comes to the story. Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk about him more later. But yeah, Nonohana is a pretty fun character. Let's move on to our second cure. Okay, so our second character is Yakasuji Saya. She is the blue cure of the team. She's pretty blue in personality. She's a pretty regular blue cure. She's quiet. She's also mature. She also kind of affects how Hana like views herself, but like she's not that special. She was going to be an actor, but then last second they decided to turn her into a doctor, which is usual for a blue cure. Honestly, Saya, she's a nice character and all, but like she wasn't done very well. She's my least favorite because she's the least interesting out of every single character in the main, like at least the 5 main girls. She's the least interesting. Even though she could have had like a really like a much better story to tell, they just went back to the basics of being a blue cure and said, oh, she's gonna be a doctor. The only thing that stops her from 100% being super blue is that her powers aren't water. But if I'm being completely honest, she's not that interesting. There isn't really anything of note I could really think of about her, other than she was gonna be an actor. So the third character I'm talking about, and also my favorite character, is Kakayaki Hamere. She literally introduced like the great big plot of the series, or not really great big plot, but like she's the person who introduces, like, she's the person that makes you interested in this show, because the first 3 episodes that only have Hana and Saya are mid, but once you add freaking Hamere, this show changes. So Hamere basically used to do ice skating when she was a kid, and she injured herself. and she just never picked it up again. And she was like really distraught about it for years, and like her coach would be like, hey, you know, you can practice, you can get better at that one spin move or whatever, and she would just be like, nah, I'm okay, I can live without it. And then like once, like, and she was basically famous. And once she got a bit older, when she met Hana and Homer, when she met Hana and Saya, her coach was still there, like, hey, you can come back. But then basically she was about to get back in her spirits until she kind of lost it, and she basically lost becoming a cure. And it was really interesting. And then after that, she got herself back up, got herself together. She became Cure Etoile. I'm not sure to say it. And she's an absolute queen. Just watching her grow was so much fun. And eventually she gets a crush on this guy named Harry. He's from the future. He's also the fairy mascot. I'm gonna talk more about him later. But she likes him. That doesn't really go down, because he's like, yo, you're like the age of my mom. you're my mom's age. And he can't really explain like that, but like, since they're coming back from the future or past, whatever. But honestly, Homer is one of the best characters ever. I think she's like maybe my favorite yellow cure. Or if not, she's like one of my top ranking yellow cures. She is the top ranker of this series. I wish I could have drawn her a bit better. I tried so hard, but I was so upset when I couldn't make her the way I wanted to. But I love her. She is literally the queen of this series. Now on to our fourth character, or fifth character. I guess I can introduce them both at the same time. So our fourth character is Asuka Emiru, and she is a little girl who gets introduced, I think, on like episode 11 of HUGtto Precure. And she's like really panicky about things. She has like extreme anxiety, and she's like, oh my god, if one thing happens, this is gonna happen. She's basically a crazy nut, and I'm not gonna lie, I love her. Anyways, like, she's kind of crazy, and she also wants to be a rock star idol. Yeah, and her brother is basically a sexist, and he's like, well, girls can't play guitars, girls must look pretty and must sit around. So then we introduce Ruru. Ruru is actually a villain turned cure. She's a really great example of it. Her backstory is basically she was created by this one guy. I can't remember his name. I'll talk about him later. He's also a villain. And basically she goes out, carries out missions by this one lady. I can't think of her name either. And she ends up meeting Hana, and then like she ends up moving down to Earth because she needs to really blend in. And then a lot of stuff happens where she's like, oh crap, I never realized how being human is great. And with the help of Emiru, she basically realizes that. Emiru and Ruru end up getting like really attached together, with each other, and they basically become best friends. Ruru basically defends how Emiru deserves to do what she wants to do, deserves to do rock, deserves to be however she wants, and gender doesn't affect her. And then Emiru basically brings Ruru, happiness, and basically makes her feel free from all those like robot abilities. These two are like the funniest pair, with Ruru being a robot and Emiru just being chaos. But like, they have the most beautiful friendship. They probably like one of the most beautiful friendships in this franchise. They're just like really cute together. Honestly, they're just besties, and I live for it. Great. And their character development is like really good too. They take up a large portion of this series, and I love it. I love them so much. And I love their songs. They sound really good. Not only that, but in the end, we end up finding out that Ruru also came from the future. And Ruru has to go back to the future. and Imiru and Ruru have this like very sad like leave, and then later in the future, once Imiru is all grown up, she gets to meet a little Ruru, and it's adorable, and they sing together. It's really nice. Now on to the mascots. Okay, so our first mascot is Harry Harry. Harry was the one I talked about with Homer. He basically came from the future, and they need to come save the world, obviously. So he brings HUGtto, who's our second fairy, who is actually Hana's daughter from the future, and that's why I mentioned George earlier, because like he has to do with that stuff, like and basically they need to fix future. HUGtto has like a very important role in this story, and her future like really matters to the story. Honestly, these two characters are pretty good. They're well developed. A lot of fairies are just used only for gags. Yeah, obviously, like Harry is used for a gag a lot, but I don't know. A lot of times fairies are just like not too important, and they just exist. But these fairies, in this show, matter, or mascots. Yeah, they matter a lot to the plot and really elevate the story. Okay, so our first villain is Charlotte, and he was the basic run-of-the-mill villain, but one thing you'll notice about HUGtto Precure is that as the villains keep going on, they keep going crazier. So like, they start losing their minds. And that's how he became an Oshimaida. Basically, Oshimaidas are the things they usually throw out, the villains throw out, by using people. But then, but they turned into their own Oshimaidas. And he ended up getting purified. Yeah, I can't really remember too much about his personality, but he ends up becoming a video star on the internet. And then we have our second villain, Papple. She basically kind of takes care of Ruru, like I mentioned. I couldn't remember her name earlier. She's very mature and adult, like, yeah. Scrumdiddlyumptious. I'm playing. Anyways, yeah, she ends up losing her mind too and gets purified. And she mainly ends up losing her mind due to the fact that, George ends up hiring this one other girl. Her name is Gilos, and basically she ends up getting caught cheating with George because there's like this romance thing with George and Papple, and it's kind of weird. Like the way they make it looks like something that'd be like in an actual like HBO show. It was very questionable, to say the least, that Japan allows this for their little babies to see. Honestly, spill the tea, sis. Yeah, but she ends up losing her mind too. She also has these two bodyguards, and their name is Jinjin and Takumi. I can't remember if they like her or not. I really cannot remember that much about them other than they're her bodyguards. They all turn into Oshimaidas as well. Yeah, it's run of the mill. So our next character is Daigon. He basically was, I can't remember too much about him either, but he was evil, I guess. Yeah. But he ends up getting purified, but then he ends up reverting back to being a villain because George manipulates him. I kind of forgot about that. I just remembered that. And then he goes back to being good. He ends up working with Papple and Charlotte. I think Papple ends up becoming a TV person, and then this guy also ends up becoming, he ends up becoming a TV person too, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think so. I can't really remember that much. Yeah. Now we're gonna get into more interesting characters. Okay, so the creator of Ruru, his name is Dr. Trom. And he basically has this extreme love for Ruru, and he ends up becoming a really big dad figure after he after he gets purified, which in the episode he gets purified in, he ends up, it ends up being a whole Precure All-Stars thing. I'm not too big on Precure All-Stars. Personally, I think Precure All-Stars, at least from the ones I've watched, because I watched the first one up to Sweet Precure. I don't know about the modernish ones, but they were really lazy. But the fight scenes were cool. It was really distracting though, how Precure All-Stars got mixed up into this. It really broke my, it kind of broke the way he was purified. It was just strange to me. I also forgot to mention that with Papal, that Papal also got defeated with Dariwa Precure, and it was strange to me. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Dr. Tron basically becomes a dad figure. Everyone was like, Dad, stop. Anyways, yeah. Now we're going to be talking about an even more character. Even more interesting character, Bissine. Bissine basically used to work with Harry under Kraisu, aka George's company, and the villain company I was talking about. I think I forgot to mention it was called Kraisu. Anyways, Harry left, and then basically Bissine got pretty mad about it, and then as per usual, Bissine got purified, and turns out Bissine is a fairy. Yeah. So Bissine used to hang out a lot with Harry and Lysol, who's another character I'm about to talk about. Back when their fairy kingdom was still good before it burnt down, and disease spread, and then basically they joined Kraisu because they believed they could get help. Bissine basically got upset at Harry because he left the company, because Harry realized that Kraisu was not morally right as a company. So like I previously mentioned, Bissine and Harry were basically Lystol's friends, which is who I'm talking about right now is Lysol. So Lysol also was in Kraisu, like mentioned, and he's strict, and yeah, I could not remember anything about him because I haven't watched a show in a year. He is super forgettable. I'm not gonna lie, I could not remember he existed until a few minutes ago, and I realized, oh crap, I forgot this man existed. Anyways, Lysol basically is also a fairy with Bissine, and yeah, and Harry, and the whole past thing like I mentioned before. He kind of gets upset once again that Harry left the company, and yeah, he ends up getting purified as usual. Now into the cake. So our president of the company, also one of the better characters of the show, is George Kurai, and he basically wants to pause, he doesn't want time to pass, which is why he's attacking Earth. He ends up talking a lot to Hana, Kid Hana, and she's like, stay away. You kind of see there's a lot of sorrow in him. Yeah, he's even though I said that he was Hana's husband or whatever, I don't, it's not technically confirmed, it's just inferred that he is. I'm pretty sure he is. There's almost no way. Anyways, he's really interesting to watch as a villain. He's probably one of the better villains, better main villains, instead of it just being some big, massive, evil figure. I like the fact that it's really just a president, or I guess there's always that one character who's the big villain, but they just kind of sit there. But he's really active in this story. He's really active, and I really like that. He appears multiple times, and he basically torments the girls a lot of times. It's really interesting. It's way he's way better than the usual head honcho villain that just sits there in his chair, just attack the Precure. He's oh, I'm gonna do it if you don't do your job. So yeah, I really like him. Now into more supporting characters. So Homer has a friend, his name is Henri. He was also in ice skating, and he was one of those people that tried making the big push into getting Homer to get back into ice skating. but he has this disease that makes him basically unable to skate anymore once we get into like the main part of the show. So he gets to spend his last time skating, he gets to do it by becoming a Precure. It's also great to mention that he's a gay person, and we love LGBTQ plus people. We need more representation for them, and HUGtto Precure is a great example for that. He ends up getting together with Emiru's brother, the sexist one, but he ends up realizing that he's truly gay in his heart, and he's like, yes sir. So they end up getting together basically. Altogether, HUGtto Precure is just a really fun season of Precure that should totally be watched and enjoyed by a lot of people. Honestly, HUGtto Precure is just, like, I just said it was great, but I'm going to have to say it again. It's just amazingly great. Like, this season is an absolute snack. Now I'm going to get into the drawing. Okay, so the drawing I made was a lot of fun. I really wanted to play with perspective. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know. It looks mid when it comes to the perspective part, because that's not a perspective I do a lot. Looking down from below, and especially with this many characters, it was a bit of a challenge. A lot of issues I typically have with drawing these Precure drawings is the composition of the drawing. And I can't really remember if I had too hard of a time with the composition of this drawing. Actually, no, maybe I did. But, it's a bit of a challenge fitting in a lot of characters into a drawing. So I think I did a pretty great job. I really love how Cure Mastery and Cure Armor came out. But you know what I realized a few weeks ago? That I didn't color Cure Armor's bow right. At least on her hip. It's supposed to be red, but I guess I must have accidentally bucket filled it to purple. And I didn't notice. Anyways, there's a lot of good stuff in this drawing. So for Cure Armor, I realized how bleach blonde her hair was, and Cure Mastery, my bad. How bleach blonde her hair was. Usually I would color it, like add highlights to it, but I decided not to. I don't know, maybe I should have added them, but I think she came out really good. I think she's probably my favorite character out of this whole drawing. She just looks really good and looks really pretty. And I love Cure Mastery and Cure Armor's poses. I wanted to basically make their hands snap out in the picture. Yeah, I don't know, like their pose from the end of their transformation really inspired me, and I had this idea for months in my head. I just, like, literally for like a year, I was like, oh my god, the moment I'm drawing this, I'm gonna make sure Cure Mastery and Cure Armor end up being in the front like this. Yes sir. And they can't really well. The only issue I really have with Cure Armor is the fact that her eyes aren't facing the camera perfectly. Like, I tried really hard to make that happen. Technically it is, but it's a bit hard to tell. Hana looks okay. I think her face looks a bit oddly shaped to me. I'm not really sure how to explain it. I think it could be a bit better, but she looks really good. It makes me a bit sad that you can't see her shoes. But that's all in the perspective because Cure Mastery and Cure Armor are there. Cure Ange came out really well. I really like her pose. It really plays on perspective really well. And I like her face expression. I really like how she looks. The only thing that I could say would be better is how shiny her hair is. Her hair is a bit too shiny for my liking. I also forgot to mention that I didn't add shading to too much shading to Hana's highlights. I just decided to add white dots for it because I thought it'd be too much detail. Then we have Cure Etoile. I still cannot pronounce her name, but I love her. I really love how I shaded her orange dress pantsuit thing. It looks really cute. Romper thing, yeah. I love the blue. Her hair looks a bit off to me. It's a bit mustardy. Which was one thing that kept bothering me. I kept trying to make it not look mustardy, and her face looks a bit off to me. It was a bit of a challenge drawing her face, and I'm not really sure why. And also doing her perspective with her foot. You can barely see it through Cure Armor's hair, but that's a thing. Also, we have grown-up HUGtto and little baby HUGtto in the background because they really matter in this show. And yeah, I forgot to mention about HUGtto having a whole team of Precures later in the future. But yeah, I just really like how this drawing came out. It looks really good. I would fix a few shading things if I could, and definitely fix Cure Armor's bow and some highlighting issues and color issues, but the rest of the drawing came out pretty well. Yeah. So I'm going to talk more progress about my Precure Light series. So I basically have made quite a bit of progress. I'm not too far into the comic page making, but I would say I'm at least like 1/4 the way. It's only because I don't have a lot of time. I'm busy with marching band, I'm busy with school. There's a lot for me to do, and drawing these comic pages take a lot of time and a lot of motivation. And right now, whenever I have time, I try to pick things I like to do, because I don't get a lot of time to do things I like to do. So yeah, I don't do too many studies right now. I don't really have time for that. I'll draw comic pages and stuff. Basically, it depends on what I'm in the mood to do right now, because I don't have a lot of time to spare for myself. At most, I get the weekends, but even then, once I get home on Fridays, I have football games to go to. So I'm pretty busy a lot of times. So I have to, you know, make sure I'm enjoying my time. So yeah, Precure Light is still doing pretty well, in my opinion. And I'm super excited to create my first video for it in a while. I think y'all are going to really enjoy it. So yeah. I really hope you like this video, this speed paint, this drawing. I worked really hard on this drawing. I spend a lot of time on all of these drawings, because these are complicated drawings. These are complex to draw, and every time I make a Precure drawing, I aim for it to be better and better and better. So that it just makes it more complicated for me, because I'm crazy when it comes to drawing hard stuff. I never like to draw normal things, which is something I've realized. I really just don't like to. The only thing I'm consistent with is drawing anime, because I just like anime. And yes. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this video. I probably said this like 2 minutes ago, but I just can't stop talking. And I'll see you next time. Bye.